Well, the Chuggaaconroy situation has had some new developments, multiple new developments, since the last time I made a video, and my computer broke down, so I took a while before I was able to make a third. So let's get caught up, shall we? What's up, guys? Acer Thorn here, and this is my third and hopefully final video in defense of Chuggaaconroy. So, since I posted the second part of my hopefully only 3-part series defending Chuggaaconroy, somebody came along and revealed to me that even before I posted the first video, Lady Emily had actually released some additional screenshots in an attempt to further incriminate Chugga, but it ended up, a lot of people ended up realizing that these screenshots actually exonerated him. Basically, she outright said, yeah, I don't mind to help you explore this foot fetish of yours. So, yeah, she literally initially consented. Oh, and what's even better is, Chugga explained in the very next message that he had gotten permission from his girlfriend to do this with other girls. So yeah, it's just like I speculated in the first video in defense of Chuggaaconroy. It's not cheating if your partner gives you permission. This is black and white, people. And this is all stuff that I didn't even know about because I came into this story at such a late point. But knowing what I know now, Chugga has absolutely done nothing wrong at all. Now, when I say that she initially consented, that comes with an important asterisk. Because just because someone initially consents to doing anything with you, does not mean that that consent cannot be withdrawn. Now, it can't be withdrawn retroactively, like if a woman consents to having sex with you, and then you have sex with her, and then she decides the next morning that that wasn't such a good idea, then no, she cannot charge you with rape, because she consented. You can't retroactively withdraw the consent. You can, however, withdraw consent in the middle of it, and then all subsequent activity does have to cease at that point. The problem here is that, as I pointed out in the first video, Emily needed to be pretty straightforward if she did it, and doubly so now. Emily needed to be exceptionally straightforward if first of all, she needed to be straightforward if she didn't consent. But if she did consent and then later wanted to withdraw that consent, she really needs to be straightforward about the withdrawal of consent. Because that's not just picking up on social cues, that's just, at that point, she's not expecting Emil to, Chugga's real name, by the way, to just pick up on social cues. She's expecting Chugga to read her mind. So, yeah, knowing what I know now, I am 100% in Camp Chugga when it comes to Lady Emily. But then we get to the issue with Lolly. And unfortunately, that is much harder to justify. That being said, I'm still going to argue my case for Chugga in this case. I admit, it does not look good. At all. Basically, a new internet user by the pseudonym of Lolly has published a Google Docs file, public letter, where she accused Chuggaaconroy, basically, of attempting to groom her at age 15 back when he was 19. Now, if true, these allegations not only paint Chugga in a morally deplorable light, but they make him outright guilty of a felony worthy of putting his name on the sex offender registry. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I've been waiting all weekend to make a statement about this. Now, another ex-user by the name of Byron the World 10 has come out and basically defended Chugga for the worst possible reason, saying that Lolly is basically that she initiated everything, which apparently exonerates Chugga. No, that does not. With Lady Emily, the fact that it might have exonerated Chugga, but not with Lolly, because she was ostensibly a minor at the time. That's why it's called statutory rape. It's the statute that's what makes it rape, not the lack of consent. Like, minors are legally deemed to be incapable of consent. So Lolly didn't lie about her age. So Chugga knew that she was 15 at the time, and he allegedly pursued this long-distance cyber sex with her despite knowing that. If she initiated, that doesn't excuse him. He still had a legal and an ethical duty to reject her advances because she was underaged. Alright? That's something we just need to nip in the bud. That being said, there are still quite a few extenuating circumstances here. Yes, believe it or not, even for something as heinous as grooming, there is the potential for extenuating circumstances. One of them is the fact that while Lolly might have only been 15 at the time, Chugga was only 19. They're only 4 years apart in age. Now, that doesn't completely excuse his behavior, but it does make it so that it would be of the mildest variety, though admittedly that's damning with faint praise. When you're talking about grooming and pedophilia, calling something the mildest form of it is not... it's not saying a lot. Like, that is not hard to do. So, however, it would be the sort of thing where, like, bear in mind this happened allegedly back in 2010, so it would have happened so long ago that if he had been arrested and prosecuted for it when it first happened, then Chugga would, in all likelihood, not only have long since served his sentence, but he would even be eligible to have his name taken off the sex offender registry by now, assuming he hadn't reoffended. Because the governments tend to do that when it comes to borderline cases like this, where Chugga is, like, if Chugga had only been 1 year younger, or if Lolly was 1 year older, like, if they were only 3 years apart in age, it would have been legal. At least in my state. In my state, statutory rape only applies if the elder of the two is more than 3 years older than the younger one. That's something to keep in mind. Like a 19-year-old boy having sex with a 16... Well, actually, in my state, 16 is the age of consent, just period. But, like, an 18-year-old boy in 12th grade having sex with a 15-year-old girl in 10th grade is legal in my state. Like, no, like, it's not even a borderline issue, it just is legal. So, yes, so please keep that in mind. So, in cases like this, where even if it technically qualifies as grooming, it's a borderline case even then, I think that's worth cutting Chugga just a teeny tiny bit of slack. Admittedly, only a little, because pedophilia is still fucked up. However, the next things that I'm going to be talking about are not quite as minimal as this. In fact, they do a lot more to exonerate Chugga than just this does. And the first among these is the fact that we have to keep in mind that this has all happened before. And actually quite recently. I don't know about the Nintendo Let's Play community, but at least when it comes to made-up allegations of grooming that were later proven to be false, yeah, not only has this happened, it has happened recently, multiple times. The first and by far most prolific example of this happening is the case of Inquisitor 3, also known as Inquisitor Ghost. He was a TikToker who liked to dress up in ghost face like cosplay and basically just lip sync videos just for funsies. Well, basically some people on the internet got together, decided they wanted to screw him over just for the lulz. So they had one person in them who was a 17-year-old starts messaging him and start heavy flirting with him to try to get, and he didn't even reciprocate. Like, she lied and said she wasn't a minor, even though she was, and that would have exonerated Inquisitor as well. But even barring that, he wasn't interested in her sexually. So he just rebutted her advances at every turn. And then that 17-year-old and her friends and her boyfriend, who at first everyone thought was 21 years old at the time, yeah, basically they cropped out a lot of words that he said, removed them from their original context, and posted that and made it look like he was grooming her, even though nothing could be further from the truth. And the reason that this is the most prolific instance of this happening is because he not only got harassed and doxxed and got death threats, but the harassment he received was so intense that he ultimately ended up literally killing himself on TikTok live stream. He was defamed to the point where he killed himself. Motherfucker. So that was the most prolific instance of this happening. Another instance happened with another TikToker named Good Time Charlie. Good Time Charlie, I don't know exactly what he does, but the important thing is, he decided he didn't want to be in an exclusive relationship with some woman, so that woman, pissed off over being rejected, right, because it's always men who can't handle rejection, and this has been confirmed by the police. She logged into his account, created a burner account to pretend to be an underage woman, an underage girl, even though it was her at the wheel, and then logged in and then hacked into Good Time Charlie's Discord account and sent messages back and forth to herself to frame Good Time Charlie for being a pedophile. She didn't even use a VPN. It was the police were literally able to trace it to her address. Her IP address. Like, they literally traced it to her own IP address, both accounts. And that's how they were able to exonerate Good Time Charlie. And I don't know if she was arrested and charged with filing a false police report, or did she even file the police report? I don't know. The important thing is that this has happened twice in just a few months ago. And in addition to that, There's also the story of the Wi-Fi mom. Basically, this abused woman was in an abusive relationship with her husband, who basically lied by omission and basically published some carefully curated video footage to make it look like she was the one abusing him by demanding a Wi-Fi password and threatening to make false allegations against him that he touched her kids from a previous marriage if he didn't give it to her. At first it did not look good for her. However, the husband's employer, the Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard, basically conducted their own investigation and used digital forensics to trace some, to authenticate some text messages, made sure and verified that they really were from him, where he basically admitted to beating the shit out of her and was still expecting to get laid, despite her being, very upfront and very clear with how much she wanted him to apologize for beating the fuck out of her. And to bear in mind that this was after she had endured months and months of constant harassment and death threats, all because the husband lied and made it seem like she was the abuser, when in fact it was reactive abuse. Bear in mind, all three of these incidents are less than 1 year old, and I'll be providing examples, I'll be providing links to prove it in the description of this video, so by all means, check those out. These three examples all should hopefully teach a very important lesson here. That lesson is, we should always assume that there is more to the story than what the accusers are letting on. Bear in mind that the accusers have the ability to control every single itty-bitty piece of evidence, right down to the minutest detail. We have fuck all way of knowing how much they aren't showing us. We have no way of knowing what the accusers didn't include. And that goes for Lolly accusing Chugga of grooming her when she was 15. It goes for that too. That being said, I can already see a couple of really major red flags when it comes to the reasonable likelihood that this could have been photoshopped. I'm not saying that it was photoshopped, I'm saying that that's a possibility we cannot overlook. It's a possibility we can't ignore. The first issue that I see is that these screenshots would have been extremely easy to Photoshop. Like, it's literally just plain black text against a white background. Like, you could Photoshop that in MS Paint these days with the greatest of ease. Second, around page 6-ish of this 48-page public letter, she shows us a screenshot of a YouTube video called Lolly is Gigas, and Chugga had allegedly commented on it 14 years ago. Here's the thing though, why would you only show us a screenshot of a YouTube video? Why couldn't you show us why couldn't you just give us the link to the video itself? I mean, the contents of the video are what supposedly document the pedo allegations with Chugga, but we can't watch the video from this screenshot. Why not just provide a link to the video itself? Perhaps it was photoshopped too. See, ultimately, we need to keep in mind that this is all just a case of her word against his, and we need to give Chugga the benefit of the doubt accordingly. you know, innocent until proven guilty and all that. Now, could Chugga just tell his side of the story? Yes, I'm sure he could, if he needed to. The problem, however, there's two problems with that. The first is that, as far as I understand it, he's supposed to be in inpatient therapy right now. Because he has admitted to doing that foot thing with Lady Emily, and he probably thinks he is a creep. As I made clear in the first video, he's not a creep just because he has a foot fetish. So the fact that he, quote, admitted to it is not incriminatory in the slightest. If he admitted to these pedo allegations with Lolly, that's gonna be a problem. So, however, he's checked himself into inpatient therapy right now, so he is completely sequestered from the online world, and he likely won't be able to comment on the pedo allegations for quite some time. But even barring that, even when he gets released, why should he bother to tell his side of the story? Look, even if he does, and even if he convinces 99% of the people, which is unlikely, that he's innocent in all of this, the harassment, doxing, the death threats, that's not gonna stop. Alright? It just won't. And that's, even if there's only a couple hundred people who have just made up their minds and who just refuse to believe that Chugga is innocent, even if he offers proof, those couple hundred people who are still going to harass and dox him are still going to give him quite a bit of grief. Like, if you have 25 people ganging up on you and beating the shit out of you and curb stomping you and kicking you and making you bleed and all that, and then all of a sudden 80% of them suddenly decide, oh wait, I was wrong to do this, and they stop doing it, you're still going to have 5 people curb stomping you into the pavement, and that's still going to cause quite a lot of severe injuries. When you look at it from that point of view, getting anything short of 100% of people to stop giving you hell over this, it's just not gonna be enough. So, and bear in mind, the Supreme Court has already said as much, multiple times even, when they discussed the law of defamation. Here's a case law from the Supreme Court saying false statements of facts are particularly valueless and that they cause damage to an individual's reputation that cannot easily be repaired by counterspeech, no matter how persuasive or effective. And here's another case from the Supreme Court saying the law of defamation is rooted in our experience, not our findings, but our experience, that the truth rarely catches up with a lie. See, this is why defamation is illegal in the first place. I mean, yeah, you probably could post your own side of the story, but that's not guaranteed to work. All too often, whoever ends up defaming you, you're still going to suffer the reputational harm that that you wanted them to suffer. So forcing you to pay them damages is really the only justice that can be offered. Just keep that in mind, will you? Yeah, he could tell his side of the story, but why should he? It's not going to do any good. But even barring all of that, and I really need to double down on all of this, is that even if the allegations ultimately end up being true, and Lolly isn't lying, like by omission or otherwise, guess what, motherfucker? It still doesn't fucking matter. This is because no matter what Chuggaaconroy may or may not have done, nothing, and I mean absolutely fuck all, gives you the right to take the law into your own hands by subjecting him to harassment, doxing, and death threats. Alright? No, fuck you. That is never okay. Full stop. I don't give a shit. I don't care what you think is justified. Fuck you. And at that point, you are part of the problem. Okay, you can unsubscribe from Chuggaaconroy's YouTube channel, and you can encourage others to do the same. But that is where your punishment for his alleged crimes should begin and end. No, I don't give a goddamn. I don't give a goddamn what you think he did. Take your vigilante bullshit and shove it up your fucking ass. And no, I'm not simply saying this because I enjoy Chuggers and the Runaway Guys' content either. I have taken this precise stance even when people who I hate the guts of ultimately got exposed for their perversions. Here's a video where I did exactly that. It's about a year old as of the time of this recording. And that person was one of my old haters. It's one of the people who harassed me to the point where I developed a life-threatening case of pneumonia. So no, if I don't want people taking the law into their own hands against that person, I sure as hell don't want people taking the law into their own hands against Chuggaaconroy. Alright? Internet mob justice is absolute bullshit. Cancel culture is absolute bullshit. It amounts to nothing more than vigilantism. And if you think that is even moderately okay, then you are just as evil and just as morally fucked up as the people you purport to be holding to account. So, that is my take on Chugga's pedo allegations. Those are the worst allegations I've seen so far. If they happened, he should have been prosecuted for them, although the statute of limitations has almost certainly passed since then. But even then, even barring all of that, these allegations are still unproven. Screenshots be damned. You can fake screenshots these days. Not only can you, it's happened recently. It's happened multiple times recently. We have no way of even if those screenshots aren't photoshopped per se, we have no way of knowing what Lolly didn't say. We have no way of knowing what else is in those conversations that Lolly didn't include. But none of that matters anyway, because at the end of the day, fuck you, don't take the law into your own goddamn bitch-ass hands. Because if you do, then you're just a pedophile yourself. And with that, I bid you all adieu. Acer Thorn out. Peace.